Hello everyone, welcome back to our lecture on the creation of life. We left off just finishing up where nucleic acids come from and the importance of RNA and how that was thought to be the first nucleic acid before DNA. Now we were going to talk about proteins and where they came from. So we have already discussed how we got lipids, how we got nucleic acids. So our last thing that every cell has in common is proteins. So let's talk first again, start with a definition. What is a protein? A protein is a complex structure made up of amino acid joined by peptide bonds. So it's a complex structure. Okay, that makes sense. It is made of an amino acid. We will define that word in a second. And they're joined by peptide bonds, which is just the specific type of chemical bond that is there. So what is an amino acid? So amino acid is an organic molecule containing a carboxyl amino group and an R group. So we have this great picture off to the side. So a carboxyl group is a group of elements that has a carbon with a double bond to an oxygen and also a bond to alcohol, which is this oxygen and hydrogen. So that's our carboxyl group. We also have an amino group. An amino group is the nitrogen part. So we have a nitrogen that is bound to two hydrogens with a center carbon that has this R group. This R group changes depending on the amino acid. So the human body uses 21 different amino acids to make all the proteins that it needs. Now, I think that's pretty impressive that small of a number. Only 21 different kinds of amino acids are present when you think about how complex and different all the cells in the human body are. So, we also have an example down here of how an amino acid is joined to another amino acid. It takes this alcohol group. We have our C double bond to an O. We lose our alcohol group. We lose another hydrogen, and we form a bond. So we are actually losing an H2O, or water. So that process is called a dehydration reaction. But you don't need to know that. I just thought I would mention that to be very clear and thorough. So we know what an protein is, but where did they come from? Where do we get the building blocks of an amino acid? So we need the right materials, of course. We just looked at the different ones. Our organic amino acid, and we had to convert inorganic materials that were present on Earth to organic ones. So just to be clear, an organic molecule contains long carbon, my abbreviation for carbon is C, chains, usually with nitrogen, N, oxygen, O, and hydrogen present. Those are organic molecules. Inorganic molecules are typically shorter compounds, usually without carbon. So we had a lot of inorganic molecules on early Earth and no organic ones. So how do we get from one place to the next? It is thought that lightning in the atmosphere had separated some of these inorganic chemical bonds. Now, you guys, I believe, learned last year that chemical bonds contain a lot of energy. So it would take something as strong as a lightning strike to remove those bonds, to break those bonds from the atoms. So we need a lot of energy. And then now that we have the elements, or now that we have the materials, those inorganics broken up into elements and shorter compounds, they were cooled in the atmosphere where the lightning strike occurred, and then made it to the oceans through the rain that was present. And then once in the ocean, the organic compounds bonded to each other, creating amino acids. So we can have some great evidence for this by the Miller-Urey experiment. So these two scientists sought to wanted to really have some hard evidence that this idea of a lightning strike separating inorganic molecules could come up with something organic. So what they did is they set up this system to mimic, to look like early Earth. So it has these same molecules that were around. We have water is H2O, methane is CH4, ammonia is NH3, and hydrogen. So in here we have some gas, a gas mixture. We have our gas inlet coming in to allow our methane and our ammonia to come in to a nice big bulb. Then our water and hydrogen came from this water being boiled from a heat source. So you can see these nice arrows going up and around. Once in this big tank to mimic the atmosphere, they put a spark, some electricity to mimic a lightning strike. And so once that lightning strike happened, it would cool down and go into some water that would then flow into this and continue to circulate. So they started this experiment and let it run for about a week of constant sparks and circulation of the molecules. And what they found was they ended up with a bunch of organic molecules in their water source at the end of the week. So it proved that it was possible to take inorganic molecules and make them organic. So we have all the right ingredients. We've talked through everything, but how do you put all the ingredients in the right place? Cells are incredibly complex. They're like a watch. Everything runs very smoothly. So we have our lipids. The idea is that when those lipids formed in the ocean, they encapsulated some of the proteins and RNA that were present. So now we have our RNA and our protein in a nice safe environment inside this lipid. But how do we get the complexity of the cell? So it is a process, a very slow process of trial and error. Really, what we believe is just over time, things somehow came together correctly. So if we think about it, each water molecule or maybe for every 10 water molecules, we had a nice lipid with some protein and some RNA inside of it. Now, we might have billions of these forming every hour. And then that over millions of years and lots of trials each day, eventually some of the ingredients came together just perfectly so that it could create a functioning cell. Now, of course, the cell was a very simple cell, the first cell, and it would then go on to make more of its offspring. But we believe that just with a lot of trial and error, time, and a lot of trials, it was able to happen. Life was created from non-living things. So our review, just to go over the whole lecture, we had a lot of information, but to kind of simplify it down, we had early Earth, which was very similar in environment to today, but different in a handful of ways. We needed three things for life to occur. We needed lipids, we needed nucleic acids, and we needed proteins. And then we needed a lot of trials and time to create life. So that is, I hope, a very clear way to think about how life was created. It is a very complicated question, and it is very hard to answer. Scientists are still researching different ways in which life could have been created to this day. So if you guys have any more questions, or maybe something didn't make sense, as always, please let me know. I hope this was clear and that you have a great rest of your day.